There are secrets out there, guys, performance marketing secrets, and knowing just one or two of them can absolutely light up your funnels. Let's go. This is the Revenue Driven CMO. I'm your host, Chris Mechanic. Join me as I uncover the secrets of the world's most elite CMOs and marketing leaders. The Revenue Driven CMO is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the AI-driven performance agency that makes you smarter. Hey, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, Web Mechanics will do 10 to 20 hours of work for you for free. Literally no sales calls, no BS. Just give them a problem and they will put a team to work for you for free for 10 to 20 hours, even if you're already a client. If you're struggling with demand gen, lead gen, SEO, SEM, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, conversion optimization, if you can't get Facebook or Meta ads to work for the life of you, or you can't figure out attribution, Web Mechanics will take a good hard look at whatever problem you give them, whatever programs you put in front of them, and they will give you an objective, informed opinion, plus some advice from 10 to 20 hours of senior level attention. So I would suggest take them up on this offer. It's ridiculous. Go to revenuedrivencmo.com/free, fill out the 2-minute form, and you will not regret it. Literally zero downside, unlimited potential for growth. So do yourself a favor, revenuedrivencmo.com/free, no hyphens, no punctuations. You will be happy about that decision. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Revenue Driven CMO. I'm your main man, Chris Mechanic, with a really exciting guest. I feel so fortunate to be speaking with him. He's not a CMO technically. He's actually CEO and founder. He's a lawyer by training originally, turned serial entrepreneur. And currently co-founder at Agorapulse, which is the leading social media automation tool on the market today. I'm really excited to learn more about that. But think about scheduling posts, think about listening, think about ROI analysis across all of your social media platforms. Built appropriately for SMBs all the way up to the enterprise. It's an awesome tool. I just signed up for a free trial myself. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Emeric Ernoult. How are you, Emeric?
Thanks. I'm thrilled to be here, Chris. Thank you for inviting me.
You started many businesses. You're a really talented marketer. Like when you think about the tools and the techniques in your marketing, in your personal marketing playbook, you know, like the first few things that you do, say when you start a new SaaS, is there anything that you feel like is a secret that jumps out?
It's not the secret to most people, but it's still, for some reason, something that people don't do enough of, or at all. It's spend an insane amount of time asking questions to your potential customers. Spend an insane amount of time, more than reasonable, digging for what is it that they really need. And as you do so, learn how to do it so you uncover the difference between the wants and the needs. Something I've learned in product discovery. The wants and the needs are two very different beasts.
Yeah.
And if you don't do your job right, you're gonna get the wants, but not the needs. And the needs are what you are out to solve for.
Interesting. All right. I like that. That's a really interesting play. Give me an example of that. Like either, I mean, it could be with regard to Agorapulse, or it could be in a previous lifetime, but can you think of an example where you were asking an almost ridiculous number of questions and then finally got to the truth of what they needed? And it was like,
Yeah, there's an overall rule when you are doing customer discovery. When you are doing discovery, whatever it is intended for, ever intended for to improve your product or to sell, as if you're a salesperson or an SDR, discovery is getting to the real reason why someone needs you or may need you. And most of the time, the problem is people do not know the reason themselves. It's hidden in there somewhere, but they cannot express it to you in the way it should be expressed.
yeah,
And you have the task of figuring this out. And in order to figure it out, you have to do something that is not intuitive, and you have to learn. That's a skill you have to learn. And that skill usually is about making them tell the story of how they did something in the past, or how they tried to solve something in the past that they need solving, and
Hmm.
make you describe it to you in a way that you send them back to that moment in the past and say, okay, how did you feel at that time? Like, why did you do it this way? Oh, I asked my brother for a little. Okay, why did you choose your brother, like, and not someone else? Which sounds, that's a weird question to ask, but you really have to go into the very bottom of why they do things the way they do it to
Hmm.
understand the need. And if you don't do that, then all you're going to get is the want. And the want is, I want reports on my social media. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, tell me the last time you search for answers in a social media reporting. Tell me about that. Where did you go? What did you do? What did you look for? And then from that conversation, you keep asking, but why did you do it this way? What was missing at the time? Instead of telling them, what kind of report do you need? Because if you do that, you're going to have the want, and you're not gonna go for the need. And it's quite interesting. Let's just to take I need better reporting on my social media.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that look like? What kind of report do you need? What kind of report do you want me to give you? Or what kind of graph do you need? That's going to give you the want. But if you want the need, which is I need to shine with my boss, I need to
Yeah.
prove to my customer that my fee is justified, that kind of, which is kind of unrelated to the report itself, but it's like the consequence of why you need it. Like, you need it for something, not for
Yeah.
it in itself, but for the consequence of it, or for the impact of it. Then you're going to start building the reporting differently. You go, oh, okay, so does your boss care about da 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 da? Oh, no, they don't. They just want to see X and Y. Okay, then we're gonna have something very focused on X and Y, because that's what we know your boss will understand. And my boss doesn't get engagement. Okay, engagement will go in the bottom of the report. What do they care
Yeah.
about? They care about traffic. Okay, we'll put traffic up. So, like, that's how you're going to be able to articulate how the solution you build for them look like and behave, and in,
Yeah.
in a way that makes sense to them, because suddenly they say, oh, that's exactly what I needed, but they couldn't express it to you. They had to go through, I think I want this, I think I need this, but it's because based on my limited knowledge of your product and your world and your expertise, this is what I can see. But obviously, it's usually not very elaborated, because they don't know what you know as much as you do. So you have to make them talk about how they do it, to go deep into the reason why they do it this way and the reason why it's broken.
Yeah. No, that's really insightful. It's almost like it reminds me of a psychologist almost, you know? Or
It's
like
borderline psychology.
like psychotherapist,
Yeah.
you go to them and you're like, I'm sad or I'm depressed.
Mm,
And they're gonna ask 100 why questions and 100
mm,
detail questions to get to really, the underlying piece.
mm,
There's this book. Uh, I'm not the best salesperson in the world, so I did this sales training with Miller Hyman a long, long time ago. Um, but they have this thing that they talk about a concept. So it's similar to, I think, the underlying need, and they coach salespeople to really ask those questions,
mm.
but it can be awkward at times,
Yeah.
like, why did you go to your brother? Like, do
Yeah.
you ever get a response like, what kind of question is that?
No.
No, people are happy
No,
to.
because they understand that you're digging around an event, something you did, something they did, and you're trying to understand how they did it, the way they did it, and why they did this way. So they know it's relating to that thing that they did, and it hasn't, and you're not interested by anything else. So they know you're not trying to be awkward for the sake of being awkward. You're asking the
Right,
question that goes around the stuff that they did, to better understand why they did it this way, and how you can help them solve it and do it better next time. So, like, it never feels like it's out of place. It's because we know where we're here. We know we're here to talk about this problem and how you solve it today, and how I can help you solve it better in the future.
right.
No, it never happened. Like, it never felt awkward. It could
So,
feel
Emeric,
inquisitive because you're constantly asking a lots of questions, and at some point it's like, I want solutions, I want answers from you, not questions. But it's funny. I thought in the early days that it may create awkward situation of me and them, my salespeople asking questions and questions. But actually, what I learned is people like answering questions about what they do.
yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's because they talk about themselves, because they talk about something they did, and then they know them very well, so they like talking about it. Or I don't know. I don't know what that is. That goes into psychology stuff that I don't master entirely.
People do like talking about themselves in general. How did you learn this? Did this just come to you intuitively when you had your first startup, or did you read about
Oh,
this,
like the how to ask questions?
the how to ask questions and the
Yeah,
difference between wants and needs?
I totally read about it. Yeah.
You read about it.
Yeah, yeah. There are a couple of books on customer discovery that are good reading. I think one is just called Customer Discovery. So I think that's the title of the book.
Yeah.
If you go search for Customer Discovery on Amazon, you're probably going to find it. And there was another one that I like called, I think it's called the Mum Test. I'm not 100% sure, but you can search for it, and if it brings a result, it's probably the one. Like go and make and ask them questions, and like if they were your mom, I either don't understand anything about your world and your tech and your product and everything.
Yeah.
This one was pretty good about asking the right question. And just, very, if you don't have time for any of that, the main thing behind all of these discovery framework is don't don't ask them what they think about something. Make them tell the story of how they do it today. And then
Mm.
dig into that story. Why did you do it this way? Why that way? Why did you look at different alternatives? Oh, interesting. Which one? Tell me more about those. And that's basically digging behind how you make that, how you handle that problem today.
Yeah.
Um, it's much easier for people to describe what they do than to try to think about an innovative solution to solving the problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the quote from Henry Ford where he essentially says something to the tune of like I don't care really to ask customers what they want because if I had asked customers what they want, they would have told me a faster horse.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very famous quote. Yeah.
And I think Steve Jobs said something similar to that, where, like he came out with the iPhone, like nobody was asking for an iPhone at that time. So how do you subscribe to that quote? Do you feel like your technique and that quote are kind of along the same lines in a way? Or do those two pieces of advice contradict each other?
No, it's kind of the same when you are trying to invent innovative solutions to existing problems. You're the inventor. They are not. I mean, your customers are not. So you're the visionary with a vision for how you want to solve the problem. And you have to, in order to fine tune your vision, you have to understand how this problem is solved today. That will make your vision go from good to great. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely not by expecting them to tell you, oh, what is your vision? Because they're not visionaries. They're not in the world to solve this problem for you. Like, they're not going to have the vision. They're just going to be able to express, this is the problem. This is how I'll solve it today. This is why it's painful. That they can do for you. But like, hey, tell me how you would solve that. That's just not their job. This is yours.
Yeah. Right. Right. That's true. So, in a SaaS world or in a product-based world where you sort of have to create, some standard versions of a product, how do you how do you deal with a scenario where you get a wide variety of different responses? Like you can't solve for everybody's needs.
No.
How do you sort of balance?
Um, yeah, yeah, yes and no. Look at CRM or email marketing. You can argue that Salesforce is solving for everybody who needs a CRM. In a way that may not be ideal for everybody, but a CRM is a CRM. It's at the end of the day,
Yeah.
there will be just differences in how complex it is and what level of complexity it can handle, or how do you need a RevOps team at 150K a year per person to make it work, or are you a 10 people small business? You cannot have a RevOps person at 150K a year just to run your CRM. So, but still, it could theoretically work for everybody, right? It's just that smaller business will need a simplified, simpler CRM. People in the e-commerce world will need a CRM that's better connected with their Shopify or their logistics system, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, you can be theoretically a solution for everybody, but in practice, you're gonna have to focus on certain verticals, certain use cases, maybe certain geographies that are where you are the best, or at least among the best to solve a problem, because otherwise you're going to end up nowhere. If you're average for everybody and for everything, and you're in positioning yourself ideally product wise for a specific type of customer, then business is going to be difficult eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So to summarize that, it's a lot of your success has come from not just asking customers questions, but asking them almost a ridiculous number of questions, and not so much to uncover their wants, which they're going to come to you and express their wants, right?
Yeah.
But you have to really dig deeper to uncover their needs, and that's where the real money is uncovering those needs versus those wants. And one way to do that, one actionable way to do that that you mentioned, was by asking them essentially, how have you done this in the past? Like take me to that world. How did you go about addressing this? And then whatever they're saying there, then dig deeper from there. Like, why Google Analytics? Why have you been using Google Analytics?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a super high level summary. We're not going to lie, there are a lot of intricacies to that, but it's the framework. It's the guiding principle.
yeah. So how do you scale that across your org? It sounds
Well,
like your salespeople doing that as well.
you train people. Yeah. You initially train people yourself, and when you start having a good quality, good enough team as a founder, you make your team train them, or you make your team create the training framework. And in the early days, it's messy and bumpy because the training is not perfect. Sometimes it's not even there. And as you mature and grow and get bigger, you have specific people who are here to train people. Like in sales, you have sales enablement function. That's all focus and purpose is to onboard new people and train them and coach them to get better and to become the best salespeople they can become. And you have the same for support, and you have the same for every job in the company. So you have a framework in place, so your people who are in place or who currently exist in the organization can onboard and train the new people who are joining, so they quickly gain the level of knowledge that they need to gain to be able to do the thing that needs to be done, especially when it comes to innovating in the product or to selling the product.
Yeah. And then how do you handle like the response data as a founder or an executive leader? So you've trained your team up basically to ask these deeply insightful questions. They're recording the answers somewhere. I'm not sure if it's CRM or, where it is. But how do you then go about like accessing that data stream in a way that is or how do you make that data stream accessible, A, and then like once you get that raw unstructured data back, like what do you do with it to make it useful?
That's an excellent question. First of all, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. When we were a little smaller, when we were like 110, 120 people, I'd say 2 years ago, we were not doing a good job at that. I knew we had to do it. And I knew the data was coming in, was being recorded in Gong and, whatever call recording tool you're using. And, but it was not stored anywhere in a structured manner that would allow us to analyze it and prioritize based on what we learned from that.
Yeah.
So since then, what we've done is we purchased a software. The software we bought is called Harvester, and everything is now connected to that piece of software. So every time a salesperson is getting a feedback from a prospect we lose, why we lose them, it goes into Harvester. When we win, it goes into Harvester. When a customer churn and cancel their subscription, the reason why is captured and goes into Harvester. When customer discovery is being done by the product team, it goes into Harvester. And in Harvester, it's going to be categorized by size of customer, vertical of customer, type of customer, money paid by the customer, revenue of the customer, like, or expected revenue of the prospect, and so on and so forth. And the software is helping us say, okay, what do we need to build for the retail industry? Bam, bam, bam. Here it is, because we've spent months gathering that data. So for months,
Wow.
you have to educate your salespeople who are like, oh, I don't want to enter data into yet another system. So you have to plug the system into their CRM, so they don't have to move away from their CRM, and they can enter the feedback that they heard directly in the CRM into Harvester. So like, it's a lot of education and incentives and punishments if you don't do it.
Yeah.
To make sure that the data is being captured by the people who are in the front line, who are actually, receiving it on the receiving end, and then it's being entered right in the system, so it can be interpreted by the product team, and then we can build the right thing. So, and then we even have one person in the product team who is responsible and accountable for that, to make sure to do the 360 work with all the customer facing teams, customer success, customer support, SDR, sales, and product, and do that around those teams, and ensure that everybody's doing their job, capturing the data and the intel. So we're building what really matters, and we're prioritizing which will have the most impact, in the next quarter. And
Yeah.
you cannot do that if you're a 20 people company. If you're a 20 people company, basically you as a founder has to be that person and have all that knowledge in your brain. So that's why
Right.
also you have to limit the amount of knowledge that you keep in your brain, because otherwise you're going to overwhelm yourself. So
Yeah.
what you want to solve has to be focused and limited to a few things, and not the level of complexity that my product is solving today, because I can only do that with the people and the budget and the tools that I have today, which are very expensive and difficult to put in place.
Right. Right. So Harvester is a SaaS. How do you
Yeah.
spell it? Or what's the URL? I just searched for it and
It's like harvest, like you harvest like a crop, and TR, not TER, TR.
God, we'll definitely include that in the show notes. Well, I mean, I can just tell that you're incredibly talented, incredibly smart. I'm excited to learn from you and to learn more about you. But let's talk about Agorapulse a little bit. I'm curious, just to like take me back to the beginning. Like, where did the idea come from? Where did the inspiration come from? Like, what's your startup story?
Yeah. So the startup story goes back 23 years ago.
Wow.
It's when I was a business lawyer doing M&A and decided that I wanted to become a tech entrepreneur. And it was in July of 2000. So we started our first tech business with my co-founder and CTO, Ben, in July of 2000. We built the first piece of software that we brought to the market in February of 2001. As you may or may not know, in March of 2001, the internet bubble burst. It exploded, and then everything was in pieces back then.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing time to launch a business. Obviously, had to go back to work for the law firm for a couple of years, and then quit again in 2004, and try to pivot that initial business that we had, that was a build your own social network type of business. So it was a SaaS technology allowing people to build their communities online.
Mhm.
Wrong country, wrong timing, everything wrong on that. And it took until 2009 to, pivoting that into a B2B play. There was a B2C play in the early days, like Facebook, you would argue, and
Yeah.
trying to sell it as a white label technology to B2B companies, and then, building an agency around it, because we couldn't sell the technology without, consulting and service around it. So do that, and end up to a lot of service and very little tech, and didn't like that. Got a chance to build through the agency work, Facebook contests in 2009 and 10 a lot, and didn't enjoy the building part. The Facebook, was bubbling in 2008 and 2009. It was
Oh
becoming
yeah.
something. Fan pages were introduced, and something was happening at that time around social networks and businesses paying attention to them, which
Yeah.
is something we were going after. We had been going after for 10 years and couldn't get because nobody cared. And suddenly
Yeah.
they cared, and oh, that is our time, that is our moment. People are going to understand what we do in our create your own social network claim would finally make sense. Except that nobody cared, and they wanted to just get more fans on Facebook. And
Yeah.
so we started building those contests and promotions on Facebook, and didn't like the service part behind it. And so a company in the US called Wildfire, it was basically industrialized those contests and promotion into a platform.
Hmm.
And you could build your own Facebook contest for 99 a month. And we saw that, we thought, that's amazing. That's what we want. We took all the contests and promotion that we had built bespoke for customer, built them into a platform. And Agorapulse was born. It was basically when it launched in August of 2011, a Facebook contest and promotion, photo contest, sweepstakes, quizzes, video contests,
Yeah.
all sorts of games you can run online on a Facebook page where like my page to win something. That was
Right.
all the rage between 2011 and 2013.
Yeah.
And it was Facebook only. There was an embryo of measuring and responding and publishing, but it was very, very basic. That business was not great because the churn was high. People were canceling their plan, at a very, very high rate. People were not sticking with the product and the business. And we quickly realized that we're not going to create a thriving business if we keep building that business. So we decided that we had to pivot to something else. We looked around, we said, okay, who is doing something that is selling to the kind of customers who come to us? That would be a tool that they're using every day and not a month per year,
Yeah.
which was contests and promotions. And at the time, Hootsuite was already out there. It was not what it is today, but it was out there. Buffer was out there as well because they
Mhm.
launched a year before us. And we saw that. I said, that's what we need to do. And, Sprout was very basic. They launched at the same time we launched, I think, at the time. But we saw that emergence of tools that help you manage your social presence. And we thought, hey, they are selling to the same people we're selling to, but they're selling them something that they can use every day and not just temporarily for a one-shot thing. That's what we need to do. Since we were a bootstrap business, i.e., we didn't raise money, it took us a long time to add Twitter and then LinkedIn and then Instagram and then do the publishing right and then do the inbox and the reports right. Like I would argue it took us a decade to do all of that right. But
Yeah.
eventually, piece by piece, it became better and better. And step by step, the growth, took a boost every time we did. Now we have a decent publishing. Woo, growth starting to grow again. And
Yeah.
now we have an amazing monitoring, and like I say, every single time we nailed one of the key components of social media management, our growth kept going up.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the story. So when I'm asked this question, what was the vision? I usually say I had no vision. I was trying to survive. I had a business that was not doing amazing. I had been at it being trying to build a decent business for more than 10 years. And I was paying myself like almost minimum wage, and I had to fry. Like I had no choice. I had to succeed at something at one point. And
Yeah.
that kept pushing me to try, okay, how do you succeed? You solve a problem for someone who needs it. And there are sufficiently high number of those someones out there. So the
Yeah.
market is big enough and the pain is real enough so that they're going to buy your product and going to help you get a revenue from it. So, and you can live out of it. That was as basic survival need as that.
Wow. So, I mean, you hear stories a lot of times of founders not having success immediately, but you guys went through a long period of time. It sounds like 10 years
Yeah.
roughly of, you know, more or less floundering around and doing things that you really didn't want to do. And it sounds like lacking real product market fit. How did you stick with it for so long? I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, why did you not go back and be a lawyer after year 2 or 3 or 4? That's
Wow, that's several things. There's so much to unpack here. I'm going to try to stay short. The first thing I would say is that it's never it when I say it like that, it feels like for 10 years nothing happened and you were failing and boom. No, a lot of changes, a lot of pivot. You tried a lot of things. Every time you try a new thing, You have a new hope. Every time you have a new hope, you add a new year to the counter of
Yeah.
you're trying to succeed at something, right? Uh, it's not linear. Like there are ups and downs and bips in the road and stuff like that. So definitely the model of affinities that was the business before Agorapulse, it pivoted twice. So like there were three moments, and each of those moments were a new hope for something that could be really big and eventually didn't become big.
Yeah.
There's that. And then for a long, long time as well, I was working for the business 3 days a week, i.e. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And
Mm.
I was running someone else's business 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, just to make a living. So for 3 or 4 years, I was managing someone else's company for 4 days a week and making revenue out of that, and doing, accounting and finance and support and everything for affinities in the evening and on weekends, and on
Mhm.
one day, full day a week. And my co-founder was working full time building the product. We were just the two of us, so that was as simple as that. So it
Yeah.
was not as simple as I said it, but it was definitely me and him trying to build something for a long, long time and not succeeding at it. I So that was for affinities. I think there's definitely an ego thing. You don't want to say I failed and go back to whatever. I did it
Yeah.
in 2001. I went back to my law firm. So I quit the law firm in 2000 and then launched. And a year after, I had all my savings were gone, and I had to I had to get a job. And the first thing I did was go back to my ex-employer and say, please, can you take me back? And I think
Dang.
he liked me, so he took me back.
Yeah.
Um, but then after I quit again, I could not go to the same law firm. Like my ego couldn't have taken it. And at one point, I always had the hope like something's going to work. Something's going to happen eventually. I don't know. I think entrepreneurs are a bit crazy. They have a hope for something, even if there's no reason to hope for anything. I think that's what makes us a bit crazy and special at the same time, and able to take on all that level of risk and pressure like other people could not take because it feels so freaking risky.
Yeah.
Um, Risky meaning your chance of success are so small in reality that it feels like, why are you doing it? You have one chance out of 50 to be successful and make millions. Why are you doing it? So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that one chance. I'm
Yeah.
gonna take it.
So was there a specific moment or year or like a specific time that you can remember where you really uh you found the product market fit and you gained traction and you were super excited and you were like, wow, this is working. Like it's time to scale this. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, that moment happened when we broke even, basically in the year that followed. So we broke even in November of 2015 at 100,000 euros of MR, of monthly recurring revenue.
Mhm.
And I remember that month very well because it was in the beginning of November, and I decided to rent a house for Christmas for 3 weeks on the beach in Brazil to go kite with my son and my
Yeah.
wife. So that was my gift for you did it, my friend, you broke even. And I remember it well. And then from that point forward, we grew 150% the following year. So we moved from 100K to 250K a month in one year. And the two there's it's a combination of lots of things that makes you get to some level of success at some point. But the two main things are the following. The number one thing is that when the product was not good enough and not ready, I still built the foundation to get the traffic and the recognition and the mentions and the share of voice that I would need once the product is ready. So
Mm.
I did the SEO, I built all the content to drive traffic to the website for the right keywords. I built the right relationships with the right bloggers and the right influencers at a time where my product was a piece of crap. And I knew it, but I anticipated that once the product will be good enough, if I have not done all the work that will create the voice amplifier for me to be able to tell the world, oh, now the product is good enough, come to me and use it. If I had not built the system and and the channels and the source of traffic for that to happen when the product is ready, then what's going to happen? We build a product silently in our garage, nobody knowing we build anything. And once the product is out there, we open the garage door and yell to the neighborhood, but there are only two neighbors around and nobody cares. And
Yeah.
that's usually what founders do too much of. They work on the product, and they don't prepare for when the product is ready, to give that new product that is now amazing the visibility it deserves. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's the number one thing that made us thrive in 2015 and 16. It's because of all the work I've done in 11, 12, 13, and 14 to create the framework for visibility, to allow us to be visible when we are ready for prime time. And I
Yeah.
think
That's so
that's
smart.
and it's a very hard thing to do, because you're basically working to promote something that's not there yet. So
Right.
it's not motivating, because it's not there. The product is crappy and buggy, and it's missing everything's missing.
Yeah.
But you still and it's going to be ready in 18 months, 24 months. That feels like for fucking ever in the future. So it's really, really hard to have the motivation to write the piece of content that is talking about that thing and attracting the traffic that's interested about that thing that you will have in 2 years. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah,
difficult to do,
absolutely.
but you have to do that basically. If that's your trajectory and your bootstrap, which was the case for us, so you cannot spend a $1 million on Facebook ads just to make the world know faster about what you do. You have to anticipate your future state.
Yeah.
So that was one. And the second thing is do something much better than everybody else. So you have a story to tell. And that one thing we did in 2014 was we were the first social media management software to invent the social media inbox. So instead of giving you a lot of columns with a lot of content in each column, like one column for DMs for that Twitter account, one column for mention or that other Twitter account, one column for DMs or that Facebook page, and so on and so forth. If you have dozens and dozens of them, you have hundreds of columns. That's how social media was managed in 2013 and 12. So in
Yeah.
2014, we invented, you just need one inbox that looks like your Gmail inbox and everything goes in there. And we were the first piece of software doing social media, applying the email logic to incoming social media content. And
Mhm.
that changed our world, because now suddenly we were doing something much, much better than everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
that's
that makes a lot
one
of sense.
need. Hmm.
That makes a ton of sense. So build the audience first before the product is ready necessarily. I think that's
Yeah.
something that a lot of founders struggle with. And it sounds like your biggest marketing wins from the early days came from SEO.
Yeah.
It was mostly
SEO and content for sure. So I
SEO and content.
probably couldn't be done the same in 2024 as I did it in 2011, 2012. But I'm pretty sure there are still pockets of opportunities if you're really niche and you go really deep.
Yeah, definitely.
But back then it was much more open, and the lane of opportunity was bigger. If you were following the exact same playbook I followed in 2012 in 2024 in my industry, you're doomed. It's too late. It's overcrowded already.
Yeah.
But in your industry, whatever your industry you are in, maybe there is still opportunities there. It depends, but definitely for us, that was and it's evergreen. It keeps giving. That's
Yep.
a quite in when you're starting up, it's quite an efficient growth engine.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your playbook back then? Was it basically keyword research, publish blog
Yeah,
posts, build links?
keyword research, public blog post, seize opportunities in the news. I remember one of our competitor one day changed their pricing, and I was doing that all the time. They changed their pricing at like 4 p.m. and then a war happened on Twitter against them. Oh, they changed their pricing. It's insane. It's crazy. I went home that day. I perfectly remember in my kitchen with my laptop. It was 9 p.m. and I said, I'm quite tired, but I'm pretty sure if I write a blog post now about them changing their pricing and I call the blog post alternative to them, and I start listing, hey, they're just in their pricing, blah 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 blah. This is where you can find. This is why it's not a good thing for you, and these are all the alternatives that you can use. And then I started to go on Twitter and say, hey, I hear you're pissed about X changing their pricing. Here's a blog post that tells you about alternative. Then that blog post went viral very quickly because it was all the rage on Twitter. And it was probably 11 p.m. or midnight in Paris. that all these people were in the US, or they were still up and talking about that pricing change they were pissed about. And I think 2 days later, that my blog post ranked #1 for their brand name, not for alternative to X, but just for X. It was crazy. So
Wow.
I was doing that all the time, like seizing opportunities and say, oh, there's something here. If I go very, very fast and I'm the first one, I'm going to beat everybody else to it, and I'm going to be the #1 post. And the alternative to X. I wrote a couple of those, and they were #1 on the brand search for that competitor. Trust me, they hated me for that.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. They probably had entire strategy meetings just about you guys.
How do you make them go down? And they eventually went down, but it took like 10 years.
Yeah, right. Awesome, man. So that could still work, like
Yeah,
newsjacking. That still
totally.
works today.
Yeah, it can still
Uh,
work.
so let's flash forward to today. What's really driving your guys' revenue and growth engines from a marketing perspective? Is it still mostly organic?
It's a great question. It's a great question because yes and no. Yes, organic is still driving most of our traffic, but no, because it's not. It reached a tipping point that we're not going to be able to break. Like we have kind of a glass ceiling on our head. We
Mhm.
cannot go beyond the numbers we are currently getting from that growth engine, and we have to go beyond that because we have to grow and to keep growing. And adding 30% of growth or 20% of growth year over year on 5 million is not the same thing as adding 20% on 10 and then 20 and then 40. And so
Right.
you have to keep changing your gears, and you have to keep changing the scale of what you do and how you do it.
Yeah.
And organic is great, and it's amazing for early days. It's amazing for bootstrap company because we're bootstrap. We never raise funding.
Mhm.
And it's amazing for companies that are targeting small businesses that are quick to make a decision for $99 a month, $49 a month. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it looks good. Subscribe. We'll see how that goes. But those business also churn at a higher rate. And if you have, they can help you go from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million pretty well, pretty quickly. But if you have to go from 20 to 50 millions, then it's a different story because you have to add so many of them that
Yeah.
the scale at which you have to attract new business is completely changing. And we had to change our perspective on our growth engine and move from a pure inbound SMB, self-serve, come to my website, sign up for a free trial, and put your credit card and become a customer type of growth engine to
Mhm.
an engine that's like, okay, we need customer who are in North America and Western Europe, especially France, Germany, and the UK, who are in retail, have at least 50 different locations, 500 employees, and a 10 people marketing team with at least one person in charge of social. That's
Mhm.
a very, very specific target versus let's put a blog post out there about alternative to X competitor. Yeah,
Right.
we're just going to work great, but it's going to bring you all sorts of people, most of them not being the type of customer you want to have because they're not going to be ideal for you, i.e., the problem you solve for them is not going to be big enough, and the price you're selling it for is going to be too big for them, even though it's a very small price for you based on how
Yeah.
much money you spend to build the product, and so on and so forth. So as you grow and as you get to places where your task now is not to go from 0 to 10 million, your task is to go from 20 million to 50 million and maybe 100 million at some point. The type of customer you need to attract become different. They evolve over time.
Yeah.
And you cannot go after those larger customer by doing a blog post at midnight in your kitchen, mentioning your pricing change of your competitor. You have
Yeah.
to have a repeatable and scalable process to crank more and more and more of those and bring them to you instead of putting content out there that maybe they will see and maybe
Right.
they will click on it and maybe they'll end up on your website. No, you can't work. We can't live with maybes. You need X number of retail company, more than 500 people, 50 locations in Western Europe and North America,
Yeah.
come to your online event or your offline event every month and convert X% of that to discovery calls, which Y% will convert to a demo, which Z% will convert to a customer with an average amount of probably 3 times as much as what or maybe 10 times as much as what you were selling your product before in a
Right.
self-serve inbound manner. So it's a completely different growth engine, and it's a big challenge. It's really, really difficult. It's difficult for the founder because you've never done it. Usually, it's something new. You're discovering how it works, and you have to learn a lot. You have to open your minds and your ears and go talk to people who've done it before you and learn from them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to change your teams because they're not capable of making that shift,
Yeah.
and they don't have that founder mentality of, okay, there's something I don't know, I have to go and learn it. You know, I keep telling people, and I tell it to myself as well, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You don't know what your blind spots are because you don't know them, because you look in the mirror and there's nothing in there, so you can't know. Well, there's a car, but it's invisible, right? Because it's in your blind spot. And
Yeah.
you need someone who sit in the back and turn the, hey, there's someone here, don't don't change lane right now. And you need the same thing as a founder or as a professional in general. Who can you surround yourself with so you have as few blind spots as possible,
Yeah.
and you have a few things as possible that you don't know. That's going to be a blocker to your business, to your growth, to the growth of your business.
Yeah. So it sounds like in the example, like with retail, 50 plus locations, you're talking about outbound, basically, like
Yeah,
outbound one prospecting.
yeah, outbound. So outbound can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And even internally, we have a lot of arguments about what outbound means. For me, you can do outbound marketing and outbound sales. And what that means is, instead of putting stuff out there and hoping for them to come to you, which would inbound would be, you're basically going to them and say, hey, are you interested by X? Yes, I am. Oh, I have X for you. Come and check it out. Like, X would be a webinar about a problem they're having and how you could solve it. And it could be an online event where they can learn from peers and they can learn from other companies that they admire and they respect. Like, whatever, it's you going to them and bringing them into your world not necessarily being your product, but being the how you see the world, how you solve for the problem that matter for them, and you bring them to you instead of putting that stuff out there and hoping they see it. That for me, that's the
Yeah.
main difference. So you can do outbound marketing in a way that you're doing your marketing is targeted at getting that guy and that girl and that lady over there working for the company, the type of company you want to attract, and making them notice you because you're actively going after them, so they notice you. Instead of, I put that blog post, I hope they search for that, hopefully in the next 24 months. You know what I mean? That's the
Right.
difference.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. You just gave me a brilliant idea. So, and it's kind of a merging of the two, but let's say that you're targeting Lululemon, whatever the retailer is. I know they have many more than 50 locations, but
mm,
like tear down like pieces. Like here's Lululemon's social strategy and what they're doing right and wrong,
mm,
or even like comparing three retailers' strategies against each other.
mm.
And so like if you had a piece of content like that,
Yeah, they would jump at you, the others. Well,
right.
the Lululemon probably would, hey, yeah, show me, I want to know how I'm
Uh,
comparing. And everybody who is looking at them with respect, with a look of respect, oh, these guys are amazing. They would want to know how they do things because they're probably doing something right there. And everybody who's competing with them would probably also want. So like that's exactly. So that's what I keep telling my content person. This is exactly what you need to do. Her name is Veronica. Create the content that's going to make everybody in that space want to pay for that content and give it to
yeah.
them for free. Give it to them for free. But create the content is, oh, I'd pay for that. It looks amazing. I want to know what you learn by doing this research.
Yeah.
So, and then you collaborate very, very closely with the SDRs and the demand gen team and the AEs and say, okay, we created that piece of content. With that piece of content, you're going to get their attention because they are going to be like, oh, yeah, please send it to me. Hello, Madam X, VP of Marketing at Retail Y. We did
Yeah.
that study of Lululemon versus this versus that and how they won. And are you interested? Do you want me to send it to you?
Yeah.
Oh
Oh my
yeah, please
goodness.
send it to me. And that's how you look at content versus, can we go for the keyword what to post on TikTok on Sunday? That's a completely different way of creating content.
Yeah, you would probably get like 20% response rates on that, on like
Probably.
a tear down like piece.
Mm.
Cool. That could work for almost any business, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's another one that could work as well, is you go to Lululemon's social media manager and you interview her in a podcast.
Mm,
And
that's
say,
a good
hey,
one.
I interviewed Lululemon's social media manager, and she unpacked everything, all the challenges that she's had, and how she's done things, and how she's, went over obstacles and actually got success, and how she's measuring success, and how she's presenting it to her boss. Would you like to hear about her interview? If you're a
Yeah.
social media manager in something that looks like Lululemon and you respect the brand and so on and so forth, same thing. They're going to say, hey, please, yeah, send it my way. I'm interested. And then of course you do a blog post about it. You do snippets of videos that you share on social left and right, and you make hundreds of pieces of content from that one piece of content. So that's another way you can do that. It's probably more a lazy way, because it's not the tear down is great, but that's a lot of work. And you need to
Yeah.
have a super duper expert in your team who's able to extract that and put that into a piece of content that's actually articulated and makes sense and is unpacking something that's wow, and that's not easy to do, right?
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
interview, you don't have to be smart, you don't have to be an expert.
Right.
You just have to know how to ask the right questions. So
Yeah.
it would be another ID if you are not
Yeah.
equipped to do the first one right.
Yeah. With tear downs, you might be able to make it a little bit easier if it were really well structured.
Yeah,
Like, let's say that there's certain parameters that you're looking at, like posting frequency,
yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah,
response, like the
yeah.
quality of response, the timeliness of response,
Oh,
the voice of the response. Um,
no, I agree. Yeah, it's harder than doing an interview,
but
but
yeah, it's much,
it's not
much,
impossible. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, much harder. When you're doing the interview, it's like, Lulu is basically creating the content for you.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
it's a lazy. It's a One of my friend called that the lazy lead generation tactic.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Emeric, this has been awesome. I want to be sensitive to your time. We could go on probably for like 2 more hours. I have so many other questions for you, but but I know that we're approaching time here. Let me ask you just one last question: is what is on your horizon? Like, as we're recording this, we're just a couple days away from 2024. Like, what are the top three priorities for you guys from a marketing perspective in 2024?
From a marketing perspective, um,
Or maybe there's just one big thing that's number one, two, and
yeah,
three.
there are things that we have on the product side of things. So on the product side of things, I'm very excited about our advocacy feature, because as we mentioned, proving the business impact of social media is my big vision, is what I want to bring to the world. It's our unique approach to the problem we solve. Like, we don't solve the chaos of social media by only making social media easier to manage and respond to and publish to and so on and measure, which all of our competition could claim the same. But we're doing it with the intent of helping you prove the value of what you do, and that's what our social media ROI feature that we
Mhm.
released a year ago was thought for. And then we realized it's actually quite hard. It's connected to Google Analytics and gives you conversion and revenue that you get from organic social. And
Mhm.
we realized that for most customers, it's hard to do on your own. You're the social media manager or the marketer, and you're trying to get those revenue and conversion just with you and your profile. And in most instances, the impact you were able to create was not that amazing, and it was disappointing. And we're with this advocacy tool, which basically helps you as the marketing leader or the social media leader to leverage all your team members or all your influencers to, hey, we have this amazing piece of content. It's absolutely, we have this teardown of Lululemon, all your employees. I would appreciate if you could share that on your LinkedIn and see, if in your network, there would be people interested by that. And then suddenly, instead of just being you with your own brand profiles to share it with and to spread the love about it, you suddenly have dozens or hundreds of people who are potentially able to share it, and you to measure the return on that, like how much traffic did I get from those shares, how many shares did I get from them, how much traffic did I get, how many conversion did I get, how many leads did I get. So I'm excited about that because it's an amplifier to something I already believe I want to solve, which is proving that social media actually works as a
That's
marketing
so
channel.
powerful. I mean, think
And
about a large company,
mm,
like let's say you have 1,000 employees. If you can get 10% of them to reshare and amplify, it's gonna massively increase reach. Like ridiculous. That's awesome. That's a
yeah,
really
and obviously those software they already exist, but we approach it the same way we approach or how we build Agorapulse. It's a very lean and simple advocacy tool. It's already included. It's not another product that you have to pay $1,000 for. You can test it for free. You can have 10 employees or 10 advocates in it without paying zero. I think we went for, I forgot, like 99, 49, 50, like I don't know the price per employee, but it's very, very affordable. So I mean, any small and medium business can actually try it and see if it works for them. And it's again a very lean and simple way to do it versus a bloated. The problem with all the advocacy stuff we've seen outside there, they become a huge tool of their own. We didn't want that. We just wanted for the marketer or the social media person to build a team of people who are eager to help spread the word and have a
yeah.
super simple system for them to let them know via email that the word is ready to be spread, and
Mhm.
use AI to create different variation of the content, how it can be shared, and then track what happens after the shared with our unique patent pending technology of return on investment tracking.
Yeah.
And that's again, it's a multiplier. It has a multiplier effect, and it will be in the product, like I think next week, without needing to add anything or pay for an add-on or talk to another salesperson. So I'm excited about that
Awesome.
on the product side and the potential for our vision to become more and more of a reality, helping people prove the value of what they do on social. And on the marketing side, our big challenge is we've never really done, except for agencies, because agencies were a big ICP, ideal customer profile, for us for a long time, still is. But except for agencies for whom we build specific content and online events and that kind of stuff, we never really verticalized our marketing. And we're starting to do that. And that's one of the challenges that we need to nail. Like how do we be more specific for a retail vertical or hospitality vertical or a B2B vertical, like depending on the ICPs that we're going to go after.
Yeah.
And that's one of our marketing challenge for sure. And yeah, and how we build list, another marketing challenge, how we go after the list, how we measure our penetration in the list, like how many of those organizations that we have identified that are our ideal customer profile engage with our content, engage with our events, engage with our marketing assets, came back to us, raised their hand, asked for a demo or asked for more info, and how many of them got in front of an AE, and how many of them eventually became customers, and try to have a more outbound approach of how we do marketing. It is one of the big challenges we're still tackling, or we're still fighting to get to. It's not done yet for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, that changes too. Outbound changes as time goes on. People become sort of blind to certain things that used to work in 2018, like really don't
Oh
work
yeah.
anymore.
Mm.
They just get overplayed.
Yeah.
Emeric, this has been awesome. Do you have a couple more minutes or do you have to jump right now?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
I want to get one other snippet from you just for folks that like might not be that familiar with Agorapulse. Um, like I know you have a lot of competitors, right? There's like the Hootsuites of the world. There's the what do you call the other one? Sprout.
Yeah.
I know that you're winning customers from them. Like when you win customers from a Hootsuite or a Sprout, like what are the reasons that they're choosing you?
Yeah. So the the reasons are different depending on whether it's coming from Sprout or whether it's coming from Hootsuite. From Hootsuite, the reason they're choosing us is because Hootsuite is a legacy player, and their software is legacy like. It looks like a legacy software. So it's
Yeah.
almost like you're choosing between Windows 95 and Mac OS,
Yeah.
whatever, the latest one. There's one that yeah, it works, but it's a bit clunky and it's not great. And it feels like 10 years ago, but it actually is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Us, which is very lean and modern and really fun to use. And then that's really feedback we get all the time. We love using your software, which is not feedback you'll get from a Hootsuite user. So with Hootsuite, that's the main reason. There's also support, like the support they provide is really not great. When you go on G2, their rating on support is very low. Ours is the top, is the best support, even across Buffer or Sprout. We're ranking number one for support. So, and at some point when people have issues and nobody's answering them for 24 hours or 48 hours, people in 2024, it's hard to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow. So for
Yeah.
Hootsuite, those are the two main reasons. The main reason for Sprout is usually linked to how they've increased their price, and because they're going after a market that's more and more and more enterprise, and it makes sense. They're at 330-40 million dollars of annual recurring revenue. We're at 23. So
Yeah.
our scale of things, for us, getting a customer at 10K is amazing. We love it. We get them, but love more of them. But when we have a 12K a year customer, we're really, really thrilled. For them, it's barely enough now. Now they need
Right.
to get the 40K, the 50K a year customer.
Yeah.
And so that makes all the customers that are below a certain amount less and less core to them. And we're still happy to get customers like that. The 500 a month customer, for us, it's still a good size customer, but for them, it's become too small to sustain the growth that they need to sustain. So
Right.
they've raised their price quite significantly, and now they're raising their price on their customer base, and some of them are like, that's too much. So they look around. It's a push, basically. It's not a pull, it's a push on their side. They look
Yeah.
around and they like what we do. And then obviously there are things that we do that they don't do, and for those things, people are going to prefer us. But the other way around is true. There are things that they do that we don't do, and for those things, people are going to prefer going to Sprout. So Sprout is really going to be a matter of positioning, and with that positioning goes the price. And for some people, I don't want to pay for all these things I'm not using.
Right.
You're more affordable, and you have all the stuff that I need. So those are the ones that we eventually capture from them.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, what is the real sweet spot clients, or who are the real sweet spot ICPs? It sounds like multi-location retail,
Yeah.
agencies. Are there any others that you like a lot?
Yeah, multi-location restaurants, governments. We have a ton of cities and states, and we have the French Army. We used to have the U.S. Army as a customer. I don't think they're a
Really?
customer anymore. Yeah, self-serve. That was funny. We have a lot of universities. Higher ed is also big. Yeah, so the problem with that, it's a bit all over the place. So when we do our outbound motion, we have to pick the ones that pay the highest, pay mostly annually and not monthly. And so like that's how we choose what vertical, what type of customer we're going after.
Yeah.
But those are the majority of customers we have. Yeah, then we have some gaming customer, but any customer, any business who has an active presence on social is going to be a good customer for us, because the level of complexity and shitload that they have to deal with in terms of number of comments and posts, and it's all over the place. And so gaming is a good candidate for that, because people are very excited about their games, and they have usually a couple of social profiles per game. They have many games, so it creates a whole chaos of social that they have to maintain. So that's one example. And any business that fit that profile is going to be an ideal customer for us. But unfortunately, there's not, like gaming is a big industry, but if I was only doing social media for gaming, I probably wouldn't be where I am today, because I would be way too small. So I couldn't build what I'm building today. So you have to appeal to a lot of types of businesses, but still go after the largest ones, like the largest groups. And the ones you mentioned are the largest, like agencies, 30% of our customers, I think. And retail, multi-location also being restaurants, food and beverage, or hospitality. Those are they are great customers. They're a great fit for us, because we solve a big enough problem for them, so they're okay to pay what is a reasonable price to pay based on the, whatever, how many developers do I have now? 50 or 55 who are all costing an arm and a leg, and very smart people, but very expensive. In order to feed those teams, we have to add customers that are paying more than $49 a month.
Right. I hear you, man.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Emeric. I really, really appreciate it. It sounds like you guys are really doing amazing. You're occupying, you have a solid position in the market. Like, I've seen your reviews and your rankings on G2. So I'm confident that you guys are going to continue growing and hopefully have a great 2024. And I really enjoyed this interview. This was awesome, man.
Thank you. That was good. Yeah. I enjoyed it too.
Cool. So for everybody listening, if you enjoyed this or if you learned anything, we'd really appreciate if you share this with a friend or drop us a 5-star review anywhere you get your pods. Emeric, any parting words, or for people that would like to learn more about you and Agorapulse, like, where would you direct them?
They should go on LinkedIn and find me on LinkedIn, EMERIC ARNOULT, and I'm always happy to accept new invitations on LinkedIn when there is a note that tells me, hey, I heard you in that podcast, or I saw you at that conference, or whatever is the context, so I can accept, because I receive a lot of invitation that I'm not going to accept if I don't know who they are. But if I know that you're coming to me because you have questions or you're interested by learning more about something that I shared, I'm more than happy to accept the invitation. So that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Love it. Love it. All right. So include a note on the invite and LinkedIn. Noted. Cool. Well, that was another exciting episode of Revenue Driven CMO. Emeric, stay on the line just one sec. We'll wrap up. But for everybody else, we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us here today. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at revenuedrivencmo.com. That's revenuedrivencmo.com. And hey, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, Web Mechanics will do 10 to 20 hours of work for you for free. Literally no sales calls, no BS. Just give them a problem and they will put a team to work for you for free for 10 to 20 hours. Even if you're already a client. If you're struggling with demand gen, lead gen, SEO, SEM, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, conversion optimization, if you can't get Facebook or Meta ads to work for the life of you, or you can't figure out attribution, Web Mechanics will take a good hard look at whatever problem you give them, whatever programs you put in front of them, and they will give you an objective, informed opinion, plus some advice from 10 to 20 hours of senior level attention. And that's just because you're a listener of this podcast. So I would suggest take them up on this offer. It's ridiculous. Go to revenuedrivencmo.com/free, fill out the 2-minute form, and you will not regret it. Literally zero downside, unlimited potential for growth. So do yourself a favor, revenuedrivencmo.com/free, no hyphens, no punctuations. You will be happy about that decision.